As we all know, the Lumix S5IIX can actually record ProRes internally in 1080p, but I'm sure a lot of you guys are sitting there thinking, well, I'm never actually going to use 1080p, why would I do that when this camera shoots 6K? Well, actually, I've been shooting with the 1080p ProRes internally with the S5IIX, and I've got to tell you, it's actually really good. So yeah, in this video, I'm just going to be talking a little bit more about my experience using the internal ProRes on the S5IIX and why for some people it may make a really nice workflow for, let's say, corporate work and stuff. So firstly, I just want to sort of talk about ProRes in its entirety and sort of tell you guys why I would probably opt to use ProRes over any other codec for editing and for just a post workflow. It runs really smoothly in any of the NLEs, so it runs great in Final Cut, of course, because that's also an Apple software. It runs great in DaVinci Resolve, it runs great in Premiere, and to be honest, any sort of post workhouse that I normally work with, like agencies and stuff, a lot of their editors absolutely love it when I can deliver ProRes to them. So it is definitely a big deal for those that do this professionally. So I'm just looking now on my S5IIX and it can actually do full HD ProRes, of course, internally at 25 and 50 frames a second at 422 and 422 HQ compression types. I've actually compared 422 and 422 HQ together, and if I'm being completely honest with you guys, there's not really too much of a difference, but of course if you are shooting 1080p, then the chances are you want to get as much detail as possible out of it. So I'd probably shoot 422 HQ just to be safe, because again, we are shooting in HD. So the full HD 25p in the 422 compression is 126 megabits a second, and then the 422 HQ is 189 megabits a second, and that's in 25p. And then the 50p at 422 is 252 megabits a second, and then the 422 HQ is 378 megabits a second. So we're getting some decent data rates out of a HD codec here, guys. So realistically, it's still going to be quite robust to sort of push and pull it. But anyway, so I decided to shoot all HD ProRes internal with the S5IIX when I actually went on a day out here down in Kent at Leeds Castle for this medieval day thing. They said have a joust, and you know, those old guys, ironmongers or whatever the hell they're called. So I was like, that'd actually be quite cool to get some content for. And that day I shot completely in ProRes in HD. So yeah, that's the sort of footage that you guys are seeing here in this video. And to be honest, when I was grading it, I was actually really surprised at how much you could sort of push and pull the footage, and also on my 4K monitor, just how good it looked for HD. Of course, being ProRes and being either 422 or 422 HQ, we are talking about the sort of Cadillac of your HD codecs, if you like. It's probably the best 1080p that you could probably get, especially since this is a 6K sensor, so it's actually downsampling to 1080p, which means that technically you're going to get quite a sharp image anyway. And of course, these being mirrorless cameras, they do tend to sort of be quite sharp compared to, let's say, cine cameras and stuff. So the 1080p was actually quite pleasing. I know that most of you guys will probably be more interested in using the ProRes externally via the USB-C to SSD function, and that's great because of course we can go the whole way up to 5.8K at 422 HQ and get some really nice data rates. I mean, if you're actually someone that wants to, let's say, deliver your content on a mobile device, for example, so let's say you're doing something for Instagram or for YouTube, then 1080p is still going to be absolutely fine. And actually, most screens nowadays are still 1080p, and we're only starting to catch up to 4K. Like, of course, we probably have 4K monitors, like, by we, I mean me and you, because we do this sort of stuff for a job and we're really interested in it. But the average consumer or the average person will still be quite content just with a HD screen. In fact, the newest iPhone, I don't even think this screen is full 4K. It's probably like a sort of you know, step between full HD and 4K. And I know that of course some of the Android phones probably can display 4K HDR content now, but for the most part, guys, most consumer tech is still used to 1080p. I mean, the broadcast standard is still 1080p, so I don't think that 1080p is actually completely outdated even now in 2023, and I can completely understand why Lumix still decided to give us full HD ProRes internally, because for some people it might be all they need. Now, of course, I'm not trying to tell you guys that you won't be able to tell a difference between, let's say, 6K and 1080p ProRes. Of course, there'll be a difference. And if you have a monitor or a screen to sort of play it back that can actually show you the true 6K, then of course it'll be a night and day difference. However, what I'm trying to say here, guys, is that realistically, if the world's not caught up for 6K, then realistically, all we have it there for is redundancy and cropping. And of course, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I still shoot in 5.9K most of the time just because I can. But that doesn't mean that shooting in 1080p 1080p is necessarily a bad thing. Like, for example, if I had a client say to me, oh, do you mind if we, got the delivery in ProRes for our editors? I'd be like, no worries, what's the sort of final delivery going to look like? And if they say to me, oh, we're going to be delivering in 1080p, then I'll go, fantastic, I'll record internally. But if they say, oh, we'll be delivering in 4K, which to be honest, guys, doesn't really happen as much as you think it would, then of course I can just use the USB-C to SSD recording function on the S5IIX. And to be honest, I think that that's actually the biggest reason why you should buy the S5IIX over the S5 II. It's just for that ProRes recording, either via USB-C SSD or, the 1080p internal, because for the most part, that's probably the biggest difference. Another reason why the Full HD ProRes internal will be a great thing for some of you guys is if you don't have fast enough computers. Of course, I'm a sport little brat, so I've got, really nice computers. I've got M1 machines throughout, so they can handle pretty much anything. But let's say you're using a slightly older MacBook, or you're still on an old PC that doesn't have the best graphics card, for example, and you find that your editing software is chugging quite a lot and there's dropping frames, all that sort of stuff that you don't really like to, have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, then why not shoot in Full HD ProRes? Because realistically, that's going to give you the best editing experience on your computer. And if you guys are interested in finding out a little bit more about the other codecs featured on the Lumix S5IIX, then you should definitely go check out this video next, where I do a bit of a deep dive comparison on the long GOP and all intra codecs.